I'm Mario Martinez Jr., CEO and founder of Vengreso, and we are the creators of FlyMSG.io, the free personal writing assistant and text expander application. On each episode of this podcast, you will hear from sales leaders, practitioners, and influencers to help you grow your sales numbers at scale. So, get your pen and paper or iPad and keyboard and start taking notes as you're now listening to the Modern Selling Podcast. Welcome to this episode of the Modern Selling Podcast. And true to your form, I'm Mario Martinez Jr., and I'm using Super Mario. You got that right. Now listen, in this particular show, I'm excited to present to you me speaking on another podcast called SaaS Stories with my friend Joana Inch. Now you're going to really like this story because we're going to be talking about pivoting or perishing, embracing change in a fast-paced world of SaaS technology with our story about FlyMSG. Take a listen to this and learn how you're going to be able to apply them in learning how to pivot in your sales motions, looking at marketing or sales, and also understanding insights about buyer behavior and sales strategies that will make a difference in whether you succeed or fail. Take a listen to this podcast right now on the Modern Selling Podcast.
Welcome, regulars, to this episode of SaaS Stories. I'm very honored to be joined by Mario Martinez Jr. from Vengreso. Welcome to the show, Mario.
Thank you so much, Joanna. I'm excited to be here with you and all of your SaaS founders and marketers that are listening in.
Thank you. I'm so excited to have you. My first question for you, really your journey and where you began. Now, two keywords come to mind, Ventas and Ingresos. Tell me the story of the name, and just before the show, you were telling me about a pivot, a marketing pivot, and I stopped you. I said, save it for the show. So please share that story with us on how you got started.
Great question. So we go right to the heart of it. So Vengreso actually is a word mixture of two words, and it was Ventas and Ingresos, which is the Spanish words for sales and revenue.
Nice.
And originally, Vengreso LLC, so a limited liability corporation in the U.S., we started out as a service company for our first 6 years since April of 2017. As a matter of fact, we just hit our 7-year anniversary
for the anniversary.
Thank you. And so what we did is I did a 7-way company merger of 7 different companies that came together to form collectively the largest digital sales training prospecting company out there in the market. And our entire focus was centered around salespeople and individual business owners, SaaS founders, entrepreneurs, etc. And we launched a company that was targeted towards helping individuals increase their sales pipeline and to be able to get more hellos. So if you think of the sales training spectrum from pre-hello to the hello, and then hello to the close, we were all centered here on this pre-hello to the hello phase, which arguably is about 30% of the work, but 70% of the hardest part of the sales cycle, just getting that first hello. So we launched with Vengreso with the Vengreso as to represent sales and revenue. And then we had this pivot. We launched a piece of software called FlyMSG, which people can go out and play with it today. It's free. And when we launched that piece of software, what we thought was a sales tool turned out to be a full-fledged knowledge worker productivity tool. And that grew its own set of legs. And so we decided that we were going to start pivoting the company and to become a SaaS company with training as a service. And so interestingly enough, while the majority of our users, a little over 50%, were from the sales, customer service, and customer success line of business, the other 40+% was every Tom, Dick, and Harry you could think of. And that was an accountant, a lawyer, a medical doctor, an online pharmacist, a stay-at-home mom. So we had this big group of knowledge workers. And when we were looking at transitioning from a full service company into a SaaS company 1 year ago to date, the question is should we begin using FlyMSG as the go-to-market name, or should we use Vengreso? And Vengreso had the super high domain authority. It was a very big website because we had merged together 7 companies and really rolled up all these different assets from many years worth of being in business. And so what we made a decision on was, and from a marketing standpoint, was we would have to wait until until Google could figure out that FlyMSG was Vengreso and Vengreso was FlyMSG. Otherwise, we could tank our results early on within that first 6-month period of conversion. So it's kind of like, do I rip the Band-Aid now, or do I rip it later when it's grown a scab underneath it? So we decided that we were going to force Google to figure out that FlyMSG was Vengreso and Vengreso was FlyMSG. And really, you can think of it as Meta and Facebook. Meta is the company, Facebook is the product. And so that's essentially what we rolled out to market with in order to be able to support the Google SEO dynamics of what we were trying to accomplish and not impact the domain authority and topical interests. And so now 1 year later, you may be wondering whether or not we're going to be converting that name. And the answer is shh, don't tell anybody, Joanna. But yes, we will be converting. And absolutely, Google knows that Vengreso is FlyMSG and FlyMSG is Vengreso.
Got it. I can keep that secret. I might just go out on Spotify to any of the listeners today. But thank you for that story. Tell me more about FlyMSG because look, normally I ask questions around SaaS and SaaS challenges and growth challenges, but I've got a marketing and sales background myself. So quite selfishly, I'd love to know more about what challenges you're finding in the world of marketing and sales today, especially post-COVID. I feel like the way that buyers shop is drastically different from the way salespeople sell. I think with sales, we're kind of stuck to traditional methods for quite a long time, and we haven't adjusted for the way buyers are shopping now. So I'd love to get your thoughts on that.
Well, there is no doubt that the way buyers buy is not the way sellers sell. That is absolute truth. So it actually goes in to justify what we did with FlyMSG. And originally, when we launched FlyMSG as a SaaS product, it was designed to be a complement to our sales training program, our sales prospecting training program. And in that sales prospecting training program, in our on-demand, which is about 14 hours, we call it Fly Learning. Inside of there were over 60 different sales scripts that taught a business owner and or a B2B seller how to go about leveraging messages, even as something as simple as a happy birthday to convert it into an actual meeting, all the way to a cold email sales message, And what we realized was that we were putting all of these templates inside of a Word doc, and that Word doc actually amounted to a 27-page Word document, which is still available inside of our downloads, with 60 different scripts that really teaches the individual when and how to go about using these messages. The problem that existed is that an individual would save these Word documents or PDF files, and then they'd have to go find them once they wanted to use them, and they would copy and paste. Not only did they have our messages, but they had one from their sales manager or from the enablement organization, depending on the size, or their own set of greatest hits that they stored on a Google Doc, Word Doc, OneNote, Evernote, Notepad, Notebook, draft email, or worse yet, they hunted and pecked for them inside their sent folder on email. And so all of these situations were basically weighing down the individual business owner, SaaS founder, salesperson from being the most productive, because they would have to go open their file explorer, go find the file, open the file, find it within 20, 30, 40, in some cases 50 pages worth of content notes, then copy, then paste, and put it on LinkedIn and or Salesforce and or HubSpot and or email and or you fill in the blank. And so we said, well, wait a minute, this doesn't make any sense. What if we built a text expander? And that was the original product of FlyMSG, a text expander product where you could take all these templates and put them into the cloud. And no matter what platform you were on, wherever you were engaging with a buyer, whether it be Salesforce, LinkedIn, LinkedIn Sales Navigator, Drift Online, HubSpot, Gmail, Outlook Online, you could build out these templates and they'd be the same everywhere you go. And so that's how we built the platform, and that grew its own set of legs. And the legs that it grew was every other person that we thought wouldn't be interested in the product became interested in it. So like the stay-at-home moms, the college professors, who, by the way, became investors in our company because they were utilizing it in a very unique way. And so it was very interesting to see how this evolved. Now, in our first phase, so I went out, and one of the big challenges of trying to convert was I had to take down millions of dollars of service-based business to zero and stand up a SaaS business in order to be able to get funding, because no VC wanted to work with a service-based company, and that was very important. So it was very difficult. So this transition was a 12-month-long plan. It took us 13 months to transition from training to a SaaS-based company. And in that process, I raised a friends and family round, which was about $230,000. And I did about, what's the number of meetings here? The number of meetings was almost 200 meetings, and I closed 151 investors to be able to get that first friends and family round, which was really great. And then that was helping us with some product development. It was helping to, squeeze things down as we started the conversion process. And then in April of 2023, we raised the beginning part of our pre-seed round, and we took in a solid amount from a institutional investor. And then what we did was we said, all right, this has pure product-led growth modeling and playground here for us. So we're going to really go at it on the PLG side of the house. Now, I'm an enterprise guy, so I've spent 27 years inside of enterprise selling, managing up to $300 million a year in total revenue and sales. And so I've never done product-led growth. But I thought we can do this, and I'm also a social media and marketing and sales influencer. I can do this. And so we were pulling a lot of levers, Joanna, a lot of levers. Brand changeover from a training company into a SaaS company, letting Google figure out who we were, marketing for product-led growth, trying to build out product all at the same time with the super small micro team. And I will admit it was probably a little bit too much to handle. And what I didn't know was that the product-led growth wasn't going to take off as fast as I had hoped it would take off, and that we needed a lot more money to be able to drive the results on a PLG play. So at any rate, we started that product-led growth process, and as we went through that, sure enough, still 50% of our users were the sales, customer success, and customer service line of business, or a little bit greater than 50%, and then under 50% was the everybody else that I mentioned. The problem was that we were converting between 2 and 4%, which is the average PLG conversion rate. So that's not the problem. The problem is I wasn't bringing in 10,000 new freemium clients a month to make that 2 to 4% worth something that would actually make investors say, oh, this is really good. So we got to the point where we almost went out of business, and our lead investor said, you got to pivot. You got to pivot. You got to go sales-led growth, and you got to go back to what it is that you really, really know, and use product-led growth as a lead magnet to get you to the sales-led growth. And that was a tough moment in time, because we had spent basically 10 months trying to rev up this engine. And by the end of 2023, I really had to take a step back, and I had to automate the crud out of every product-led growth motion that we had. And then during Thanksgiving and Christmas holiday and New Year's holiday time, I had to build a sales-led growth pipeline and then close deals in order to be able to get more funding in order to be able to keep the lights on. And that was a monumental Herculean effort.
Wow. There is so much to unpack in that story. I've literally got 5 questions in my head, and I think I'm going to start with product-led versus sales-led growth. Tell me a little bit more about those strategies. What about product-led initially didn't work, and what about sales-led did work?
Yeah, good question. So let's first define PLG versus SLG. Product-led growth is, think of your Dropbox, your Calendly, your even early stages of LinkedIn, where basically one individual makes a decision to purchase or procure a product for themselves with or without the corporation. They tell Billy, who tells Susie, who tells Mary, who tells Johnny, who tells, and then it keeps on going. Also, there's a very insanely important element of PLG, which is virality. The product has to be able to, when you tell Johnny, Johnny begins using it because Susie wants him to use it. And then Johnny then forwards something out, and now Billy begins using it because Johnny was using it. And that's the virality component of PLG. And so on sales-led growth, it is the opposite, and that is a corporation says, I have a problem, I need a solution, and then they buy something for a group license, whether it be 10, 20, 100, 1,000 licenses, and you're selling to an individual or buying committee, which makes a decision to be able to continue to roll out your software in your solution or your technology. So those are that's the difference there. And in terms of product-led growth versus sales-led growth, why did it fail and why did it not succeed? Well, I can't say it failed. It just wasn't enough to be able to get investors to say, I want to invest, and to take it to the next level. We needed a lot more time. And the problem that we had is we had a lot of debt. So that we had debt on the marketing side, and we had debt on the technology side. And so the technological debt, marketing debt. Let's talk about the marketing debt. On the marketing debt side is we were in the middle of trying to get Google to figure out that FlyMSG was Vengreso, Vengreso was FlyMSG. And that was very difficult to do. We also were, even though we had super high domain authority at companies like Salesforce and Oracle, they reach out to us to say, can we get a backlink from your site, right? So strong domain authority, but it was very difficult for that for Google to figure that out. But then we also had to start learning all these other channels like G2, Product Hunt, Chrome. And every one of these has their own individual algorithm that you have to master. And there is no secret sauce that someone has written that says do X, Y, or Z. It's a combination of X, Y, Z, and you fill in the blank. And every one of them you have to do it with. So it's like pulling all these levers at the same time, and there's only so many hours in a day. And I will admit that I, as a founder, was working at easy anywhere between 18 to 20-hour days, and still am. So it has been a major, major, major Herculean effort. And the marketing debt was, the branding and the focus and the messaging. And so what we started to see happen was all of a sudden, all of our content related to sales and sales messaging and prospecting started to do this, but we hadn't amped up the engine to be able to go this way on the product-led growth side. So we devised some very specific ways to be able to drive those activities. I can go into that story if that's of interest. But then on the sales-led growth side, what we did was we started really turning down on the sales-led growth side all of our training landing pages, curriculum, and lead magnets because we were pushing the product-led growth. And so I kind of shot myself in the head, to be honest with you. I shot myself in the foot as a result of turning this up and turning this down when I really should have been trying to run them in parallel, or what I really should have been doing is running the sales-led growth motion as opposed to the product-led growth motion because of the technical debt. Now, on the technical debt side, we built our prototype out with about $15,000 with our prototype. And so we went to market using the prototype as out there in the marketplace, but it lacked significant amount of functionality in comparison to our peers. However, we grew and surpassed the number 5 in the business to the number 4 spot. And we still sit in the number 4 spot just for the text expansion. But we didn't have the 30 engineers that with $35 million that had gotten funding 2 years prior to us for that specific text expander product component. The one thing I did know that we had, though, and this is where our lead investor sat down with us about 10 months into it, and they're like, you got to pivot. We were the 800-pound gorilla in the sales space. So all 3 of our major competitors ahead of us in the text expansion, they all advertised the number 1 buyer was the sales person or business owner or SaaS founder, entrepreneur, etc. They all advertised that, including ourselves, and our data showed that that was the user that was going to be adopting this text expansion technology. What they didn't have, but I did, was I was the 800-pound gorilla as a top sales influencer, the company that was the most well-known company in the sales training space for prospecting. And organizations, in fact, our claim to fame under Vengreso Legacy, LLC, I call it, the Legacy, was when Miller Hyman Group, which is the world's largest sales training company, acquired by Korn Ferry about 2.5 years ago, which is a $3 billion public recruiting firm, they hired for the first time in their 43-year history an outside sales training company. And that was us, Vengreso.
Wow.
So we had a monumental brand inside this space. So when our lead investor said, you got to pivot, I took a step back and said, all right, who's our buyer persona? Sales people, sales leaders, business owners. What can I deliver to this market that would basically wrap in what our legacy was built off of? And so we had this thing called Fly Learning, or we called it On Demand for our sales prospecting. Well, I took that 14 hours of sales prospecting training and I brought it over to FlyMSG. And the way I packaged this now is I'm going to give you 14 hours worth of on-demand content that will teach your sellers how to go about engaging with their buyers on digital platforms like LinkedIn or video, and teach them how to write messaging that slices through the noise. Then I'm going to give them FlyMSG, which is an auto text expander to quickly deploy that messaging. And I built out several more products, and it includes what we call FlyEngage AI. And FlyEngage was centered around AI that would read the LinkedIn posts that you're engaging on as a seller and would write a response back for you as a seller. So the problem was when we taught sellers how to engage on LinkedIn, they were like, wow, earth-shattering. But they would go to their buyer's profile. Let's just say, Joanna, you're my buyer's profile. They would open up your LinkedIn profile. They would then go to your posts. They would then look at and read every single one of them. And then they would try to make a decision off which one I'm going to actually comment on. Then they would sit there and try to make an intelligent comment. They would edit, rewrite, and then they would delete it and they would just simply like the post, which never got anybody's attention. So that process to write an actual LinkedIn comment on someone's post took anywhere between 6 to 12 minutes per post per customer engagement. So let's think about this. If you were prospecting to 25 people in a day, you're making outreach. You got your email cadence program running, and now you're making phone calls, and now you have to do social engagement. That process could take you 6.5 hours just to do social engagement. And so we realized that we needed to improve on that vastly. So we launched FlyEngage AI. And in our first version, which was released in October, it was a lot of regurgitation. So I actually took the time, and took me 2 months. I reprogrammed the entire AI using 7 years of our training. And basically now FlyEngage is like having a mini Mario Martinez, a top social media sales influencer, writing for you on your behalf and engaging with buyers. Now, is it perfect every time? No, but it's pretty darn perfect, like 85% to 95% accuracy each time.
Really?
And then the other thing we did is we said, okay, so there's a little unknown correlation. And I don't know if you know this, it's very unknown. But if you and I connected on LinkedIn and I messaged you and you messaged me back, for the next 3 weeks, LinkedIn's going to serve up my content to you and your content to me. Why? Because LinkedIn says, aha, there's a relationship that's burgeoning here. They have some comm going on our platform. Let me help make friends with these two individuals and start serving up content. But here's the problem. A rep would go out and would try to connect with an individual. Once they connected, they immediately took that offline and went straight to email or voicemail. And so that channel of LinkedIn would basically close down, and they would have no value from that LinkedIn platform other than having a blind connection that they never communicated with. So what we did another time motion study on for founders and for salespeople is that we asked them to try to write a social media post. Pick a topic. We didn't care what the topic was. Obviously something pertinent to their buyer influencer. The time motion studies showed that on average, it took 32 minutes for an individual to write a social media post. Why? Because they weren't trained. They didn't know what to say. They didn't know how to structure it. They didn't know what hashtags to include. They didn't know where to tag. They didn't know if they should put emojis. They didn't know if they should put a call to action. They didn't know what that first 4 lines is on the LinkedIn feed, which is their call to read to be able to get someone to pull them into their news feed. They weren't sure if they should use a picture, a video, and then they didn't know where to go find stuff. So 32 minutes it took for an individual. So we launched FlyPosts AI. And this was right in the middle of LinkedIn rolling out their AI, which is horrendous, by the way, even still to this very day. It's totally pathetic. And I don't even understand, because Microsoft has a vested interest inside of ChatGPT. But nonetheless, it's pathetic. And so we rolled out FlyPosts AI, and that took that process of writing a social media post. All you have to do, as soon as you click start a post, FlyPost pops up. It gives you the entire prompt, and it says insert topic. You double click on insert topic, and you can put 1, 2 words, 3 sentences if you want, and boom, we write the post for you, and we write it Mario style with all the formatting, emojis, hashtags, all that good stuff. And so that's what we launched. And so we basically took that and we put together as a sales-led growth program. We said, listen, do you have a problem with, number 1, reaching new people? Buyer, chief sales officer, BDR leader, whoever it might be, business owner. Do you have a problem reaching new people, and do you have a problem building the pipeline? So getting more hellos and building the pipeline. If the answer is yes and or yes, then FlyMSG will give you the on-demand learning, and then we will give you the tool to be able to quickly deploy the messages, and the tool to be able to write your commenting on LinkedIn to open up that channel, and your social posts to open up the channel, so that when your buyer's sitting there reading their newsfeed and sitting on the toilet and scrolling, it's working for you, right? And then what we did is that was for the individual SaaS founder, so they can go out and buy the Sales Pro individual for $132 a year, and they get all that technology I just mentioned, right? $11 a month. But for the enterprise, now what we do is we layer on live training every single month, which is a training that we give to all of our enterprise clients, so they have ownership into the membership. And if they want, they can stack on top of that live coaching as well. We went to market with that offering back in November, built up a $500,000 sales pipeline, closed out 3 deals. And now that we have 3 deals, because they say, first time something happens, it's an interesting fact. The second time something happens, it's a data point. And the third time something happens, now you have a trend. And so that's what we did. And as a direct result, I needed those 3 deals to happen so that I could turn around and get my final portion of this pre-seed round that we're raising funding. And I do have, can't say the name because I haven't signed the paperwork yet, but I do have an offer for negotiating terms. And right before this call, I got a text message from the VC that said, hey, we're still waiting for the paperwork. So-and-so's working on it. I should have it out to you. So we're still in a good position.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Brilliant. You. I love that story. Thank you. Wow. I mean, again, so much to unpack there. I love that what you've essentially done is you've identified the main problems that sales teams are having. And it's not about the technology. It's not about the product, the software. It's really about, what do I say to these people? How do I prospect? How do I find them? How do I save time, doing all of this prospecting, which essentially is made up of research, researching what they're posting about, trying to connect with them with a specific message. You mentioned Dropbox in there. I'm aware of their story. It was a very long time ago, but essentially how they grew was just by offering free space to people that were referring to others. And I guess that would have worked quite well back then. But I think with your product, you're right. You essentially need to solve that pain point that the sales teams are having. You mentioned enterprise clients, so I'm just going to pivot a little bit into that field, if you don't mind. A lot of the clients that I work with, there's SaaS startups as well as SaaS scale-ups, and their biggest challenge is landing the enterprise clients, the whales in the room. And you're right, like the sales team spend maybe more than 32 minutes just trying to work out how do I engage with these people? How do I engage with the key stakeholders? And I think with enterprise clients, the biggest challenge is you're not meant to engage with just one person. Typically, there's 6 to 8 decision makers in that account. I'd love to get your thoughts on that. Any advice you have for sales teams trying to land enterprise clients? How long does that typically take? What do they essentially need to do? And how can they use FlyMSG to help them in that process?
So I'll answer that question with some of the middle ones first, and that is, how long does it take to be able to engage? The answer is it could take as quickly as a couple of days to months, depending on the size of your product, what your product is, and who your target buyer is. In our case, we sell to sales and marketing leaders on the sales-led growth side of the house. So generally speaking, the sales and marketing leaders are active on LinkedIn. And so whether or not they're just browsing or whether or not they're actually actively engaged in posting content, we can find them a lot easier, which also makes it harder because every other Tom, Dick, and Harry that sells to the sales and marketing space is calling on those same lines of businesses and those buyers. So your message really has to be pointed. So in answer to your question, we have a methodology that we teach. It's called the PVC sales methodology. And anybody can go in pvcsalesmethod.com. And if you go there, pvcsalesmethod.com, it'll route you directly to the article that I'm referring to. And the PVC sales methodology is our methodology on how to be able to create cold sales emails that slices through the noise. And there's 3 components, all in 111 words or less. Okay? 111 words or less. Subject lines that range between 1 and 6 words, with top performing subject lines being 1 to 3 word subject lines. However, interesting fun fact is we've been now toying around with 4 to 6 word long subject lines, and believe it or not, that actually is outperforming our 1 to 3 word subject lines.
Right.
So new data. I can't say that that's like for sure and follow that, but play with it is my point.
Yeah.
Nonetheless, PVC, what does the P stand for? P for personalization. And there are 2 ways to personalize a cold outbound outreach message. Number 1, you're going to personalize to the individual persona. So let's just say, Joanna, I'm looking at your profile and I find nothing on social media. You are just the ghost scroller and you're doing nothing and I can't figure out what it is that you like, and there's not much available out there. So if I was reaching out to you and you're a chief sales officer, as an example, instead of saying, hey, Joanna, I really love this post about, or I saw you guys have this new announcement that you made. I'd love to be able to spend some time talking about that, or something about the culture or anything like that that could personalize. I would reach out to you as on the persona basis, and I would say, hey, Joanna, generally when I reach out to sales leaders, there's 2 common problems that they have. Number 1, they want their reps to be able to book more appointments, and number 2, they need to grow the sales pipeline.
Instantly, I can relate to that.
Are those 2 challenges that either one of these 2 challenges something that you're faced with right now? And so what happens is when you send a message like that, you then make a decision instantly in the first 10 seconds of reading that message of, do I have the problem? Yes or no. If you do not, you skip and delete. If you do, you continue reading, because now I'm actually talking to the business pain and problem. And so this is very important. And it's one of the things we teach inside of our Fly Learning component when looking at a LinkedIn profile, and how you position yourself and your branding for you as a seller and or as a SaaS founder or a sales leader. How do you position yourself? Does your sales rep's profile read quota-crushing sales rep, all-time President's Club earner, best contract negotiator? Or does it speak to who you help, how you help, and what business problem you solve? Yeah? And if you can capitalize on what business problem you solve in 1 to 2 sentences, that becomes your headline, and that becomes now your chief cornerstone message that you utilize inside your sales messaging. So personalized to the persona, and then, of course, there's personalized to the individual. Maybe perhaps there was some sort of engagement. Maybe there was an example of that is one of our former sales reps was engaging with the buyer. 5 months prior to, he had posted something on LinkedIn talking about him being a Star Trek geek. And the individual reached out and was like, I'm a Star Trek geek myself. I love the show about, and this particular one is the one that I thought. And so the individual responded back saying, how did you know I was a Star Trek geek, right? And so he wrote back, here's the post from 5 months ago that showed me this. And he was like, I don't know what you do, but because you took the time to get to know me, I'm happy to meet with you. So Think of the P as show me that you know me. That's what buyers are looking at. So that's the first thing. All right. Now we move on to the V for value. So using the line of, I'm going to personalize to the persona. I'm going to say most sales leaders I reach out to, they have two common problems. One, they need to have your sales team get more meetings. And two, they need to grow the sales pipeline. If that is a challenge, or if these are challenges that you're facing, here's an article on how to get a 69% yes to every meeting request by your sellers. Hyperlinks right inside there. I encourage you to forward this out right now. It has 3 videos inside there and training videos along with a in-depth article on how you can start getting more yeses today. Okay, so if you're a sales leader and you have a problem with getting more hellos and pipeline growth, and I'm giving you a valuable piece of content with training and education that's free, that says how to get it for 69% yes rate to all your meeting requests, what do you think you're going to do, Joanna, on that email?
I think I'll definitely respond to you. Thank you.
Maybe you won't respond, but you might click.
I will research for sure.
You'll click it, and so what should happen? If your company is doing marketing right, then you will get the insight that that person clicked on that particular asset inside that email. Number one, hopefully you'll cookie their computer so marketing can do their thing and start advertising. Number two, maybe you don't have that. Maybe you're a SaaS founder and you don't have all those capabilities set up yet, but you do have a tool like Apollo or SalesLoft or Outreach or any of those other types of tools that will tell you whether or not someone clicked on it. And that's a trigger event for you to say, aha, I have a live one, right? So you want to bring value. So you want to lead to your solution. Do not lead with your solution. Yeah. So you lead to your solution. So that's the P, the V. And now you close it out with one of two ways. You're either going to say, hey, by the way, if these are challenges that you're faced with, I'd love to schedule a 30-minute discussion so that you and I can talk about how other customers of similar type are solving this problem. And here's a link to do that. That's option one. Option two is you want to slow roll this. And the slow roll part is you turn around and say, are these challenges that are facing your sales team? Question mark. Allow for a response. What are we trying to create? Engagement. That's what we're trying to create. And with all of that being said, let's now talk about how many touch points it requires to engage in a cold prospect.
Last time it was like 27. Is that correct?
Well, your number is way larger than what I heard. Pre-COVID, we were talking about anywhere between 8 to 12. Post-COVID, the numbers that I know of is anywhere between 15 to 18 touch points.
That's pretty, yeah.
But here's a stat for you. You can get a 40% increase in buyer engagement by using 3 to 4 channels. So phone, email, add on LinkedIn, add on video, or add on LinkedIn or video, or gift marketing and text, or you figure out a channel, right? But a third or fourth channel, by adding that on, you can get a 40% increase on your buyer engagement. Wow. So while your email cadences are going, then what you've got is your phone calling. Then you layer on top of that tools like FlyMSG that are going to help you quickly engage with your target buyer and post content. And now you've got all these channels working simultaneously. So for sales-led growth, we need to be thinking about how to slice through the noise. Use the pvcsalesmethod.com. That'll take you directly to the article. There's a bunch of training inside there for anybody who wants it. And on top of that, multi-channel approach. So we call it the Omni-Channel. It's not one, it's not two, it's all channels. Use the Omni-Channel. And what you then need to do is you need to put in the time. That having been said, remember what I said earlier about 69% yes rate to meetings? Okay, that's actually a real thing. I wasn't making it up on the fly. So the number one way to get into your buyer's office is through what we've always done for eons of time when we wanted to know something or we wanted to be able to get to somewhere we wanted to go, get a referral. And so we have an entire training program on the sales referral. In fact, if you type in sales referral and Vengreso, our article is the first to pop up under sales referral out there. And it's a phenomenal tidbit. We use it all the time and it's hyper successful in terms of engaging. And it utilizes the mutual connections because that Rolodex is now basically LinkedIn. So you use LinkedIn correctly and you'll be able to get results.
Wow. I agree with so much of that. I mean, personalization, that's something I'm really big on. I think it's key to, I think the buyers expect it in this day and age as well. I mean, if you look at the majority of the workforce, they're millennials, they're Generation Z, they expect personalization. If you don't bother to personalize, forget it. You're not connecting or resonating with them. I've learned so much from you already. I think that the LinkedIn hack that you gave me, if someone messages back to you, they're more likely to see, your post in their newsfeed. That's gold. Thank you for that. The other thing I want to focus on is because I think a lot of marketers, what they do is they spend a lot of time researching their persona, their buyers, they craft out the buyer journey. They write content, they create content. So they go through that trouble to create all of that content. But then I think the biggest mistake I've seen them make is, they use a marketing automation tool and they create a really well designed HTML email where they put in all that content. And one challenge I see is that, on the buyer's end, the cybersecurity tools that they have, they just put that email straight into spam. So the buyer doesn't even see it. So what I have found works a lot better is just a simple plain text email as a cold outreach. Have you seen similar stats and have you seen similar kind of challenges, and how would you approach cold email, I suppose?
So cold email for the salesperson versus an email from the marketer are two different things. So on the salesperson, never using HTML pretty stuff. Like, no. Should you include hyperlinks? Yes, absolutely. But nothing should be formatted for your emails on sales emails for cold outreach. That is very different than a email coming from the marketing organization. And now the emails coming from the marketing organization, I know with a certainty that there are various different entities. For example, Neil Patel, I follow him and all of his stuff, and he's an amazing marketer. And all of their email marketing messages are 100% text-based messages with a single link or two at most, right? Yeah. Short, sweet, to the point. On the other hand, we've tried that and we didn't have, quote, better results. We've also tried the formatted where you're embedding videos, you're embedding images and Giphies and movement, and we didn't have better results. So on the marketing side, and our list is a pretty large list. I've got 350,000 people in our database, and we on average market to 120,000 of them on a weekly basis, right?
So that's an experiment.
Yeah, I mean, so what I can say is like all things are pretty much equal in my opinion. Now, might I tweak things by having one pointed message with one link and play around with that? I haven't done that in years, and that actually might be a cool experiment to try out this next week, as a matter of fact. What I can say, though, is that there's lots of, especially for SaaS founders, like I was telling you earlier, we went from just about 3,000 organic clicks per month, which was our all-time low on the website, and that was at post-conversion as we were bringing up FlyMSG, and I talked about all those things and challenges that were working against us, to now over 32,000 organic clicks per month. So that's about 2.1 million impressions per month. And we did that. Actually took us about 5 months to get there, but it took us almost 12 to put all that operation in place. And that's some of our secret sauce, and I'm happy to share that. That's of interest and if we have time. But I think a lot of the things that we need to think about as marketers is a marketing email is not a sales email, and a sales email generally isn't a marketing email. And I think we need to separate those two worlds, because marketing is going to do what marketing is going to do, and it's going to nurture those PQLs, MQLs, or MQLs, PQLs, and SQLs. But once it becomes a sales qualified lead, we're going to take it through a whole new sequence of events in terms of engaging that particular lead. So, but we do have to pull many levers, especially as a SaaS founder. It's hard as standing up a new company. Fortunately, I had a super strong domain, but I told you we were impacted as a result of all these changes that we were making. And now Google loves us, which is good. And we got to maintain that. And there are some very big learning lessons when I talk about marketing debt. We had some major marketing debt that we had to fix.
Yeah, for sure. I think, losing your organic ranks would be massive impact. No, thank you for that. I think that's a fair call. I think marketing, absolutely, they're really there to nurture, to educate, thought leadership, share content of value. I think sales is exactly what you said. It's really just calling out the pain points that they might be having, the personalization. And yeah, I think they can run side by side. I think sales can also outreach in the early days as well. I love that you used Omni-Channel as well. I find that email can sometimes just completely get lost in inboxes. You know, I've seen people share screens with me on a call, and you can see like 10,000 unread emails at the top of their inbox. They're like, well, whereas with LinkedIn, for example, or with Messenger, people hate having unread messages on LinkedIn or Messenger. They'll read them straight away. I had an earlier podcast guest that actually had a SMS tool for founders and marketers, and they've said that, people are more likely to read an SMS message than they are an email. So I think covering all your tracks with different channels definitely works well. Let's talk about scaling. One of my last questions. As a CEO of a SaaS organization, how do you approach scaling? What tips do you have to make sure scaling is as smooth as possible?
And we're talking about scaling people, personnel, or we're talking about scaling like a marketing channel of some sort?
People. That's the biggest challenge for everyone, isn't it? Scaling people, matching the number of people you have to the number of clients that you need to service. I think there's like a fine line there.
Yeah. It's such a tough one. In our heydays, we had 30 people, and now we're down to about 7 people in the organization, right? So you've got to scale at the right time with the right focus, and you need to really start thinking about what's the right place? Where's the right place to be able to put people that will make an impact and prove out results? I think SaaS founders, especially those that are not sales centric, they get so caught up in, I need a customer service, I need the customer success, I need the product marketing, as opposed to focusing on what moves the needle. And what moves the needle is sales results. Nothing happens until someone sells something. And so that's where I would focus in my efforts, is on the sales and marketing side. Don't get me wrong, you need the product component and the development piece, but you do need to focus in on the sales and the marketing. And that's where I would invest my time at. But in the old days, we could find money. Literally, if I had started fundraising a year and a half prior to when I started, I would have easily gotten a $3.5 million check. As my competitors walked away with $35 million checks, right, without any revenue whatsoever. So I could have easily been able to accomplish that. But now it's a VC market. And as a VC market, what is being looked at is can you profitably scale? Yeah, that's what they're looking for. And can you actually make it scale? Yeah. And so those are the two things that we need to be focused on. So it's not growth at all costs, it's profitable growth. And you want to be making sure that in this economy right now, globally, whether you're in Australia, Asia Pac, United States, doesn't matter. You want to make sure that you can make that money last for a minimum of 18 months. That's what you need to be thinking about. And so is it growth at all costs? No. Not until you are seeing double-digit growth inside of your own business month over month. And the goal is to get net to at least break even, right? That's your real goal right there. Whereas it took, I was just talking to a VC and it was like, standard 2 to 3 year process before you became profitable. You want to try to get profitable immediately right out of the gate. And so what I would encourage people to do is I would encourage you to take the existing folks that you have and retool them and train them to be what it is that you need them to be in this early stage. Example, on my team, I've got somebody who's serving as both product management and customer service. Now you might say those two things, when those worlds don't go together, that's true. They normally don't go together, but he's seeing every single response, issue, problem, question that then turns around and puts it into a product to make it fit. Now, would it be better if I had an individual that actually did specialize in this and specialize in that? Of course I do. But what we do is you're going to give away some stock options. Take those first 10 people, give away some stock options, and so what? You give away 15% of the company. So what? It's better to have 50% of something than 100% of nothing. Give it away.
And people that are invested, right?
And people that are invested. Exactly right. So you take those first folks, give them 1 to 2% of equity in the company. Those first 5 to 7 folks, you're going to give away 15%. So be it. Give them away 1%. Half a percent to 1%. Give them something that's going to actually show like, wow, I can see myself, here for the doing the extra 2 hours a day, right? So now, not just clocking in their 8 hours, but the 10-hour days, the 12-hour days, working on weekends, those types of things, because unfortunately, in the startup environment, you need that. You cannot succeed on an 8-hour workday in a startup environment unless you've got massive traction. And if you've got massive traction, go for it. But if you don't, and you're trying to create product market fit, you're trying to create demand, you're trying to build up everything all at the same time, then I think you really need to focus in that way. And that's the way I would do it.
Yeah, fantastic. Mario, I've learned so much from you today. I'm sure everyone listening is going to get so much value out of this episode. I mean, you've given us so many sales and marketing tips. You've given us scaling advice. I think your tools are definitely something I'm going to go and start using right away. Some LinkedIn hacks. Thank you for that. I love that. I always end the show on a positive note just to get more inspiration out into the world and positive. There's so much bad news out in the world, so I'd like to go the other way. So my last question for you today is, what are you personally looking forward to in the future?
Well, for those of you that can't see my virtual background right now, it's a beautiful spot somewhere in the Caribbean. I actually don't know where it's at. My video designer found it because I told him, I said, I need something that's going to inspire me every day. And what I want is beautiful beach, beautiful water, someplace that's going to show me every single day what I'm working for and what the end outcome will give me. And so he went out and found this video of water moving right here on the beach line. And he placed our office right there on the beach line. And you can see the boats right there. And I use this every single day. And it's my inspiration that basically says, this is why you're working the hours that you're working. This is why you're losing your hair. And this is why your hair is gray now as opposed to black. And so it's inspiration for me to be able to keep on pressing forward. And so that's what I'm looking forward to is I think our exit plan is going to be acquisition. And as a result of the acquisition, this is what I think will be where I will be spending my time at most of the time.
Love that. You need purpose and a mission, I think. You need an exit plan for sure. Love it.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much, Mario. Thank you for being on the show. Really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me, Joanna. Thanks for listening to the Modern Selling Podcast. Please do me a huge favor and give the Modern Selling Podcast a 5-star rating and review on iTunes. Oh, and don't forget, if you'd like to save 20 hours or more in a month and increase your productivity, go right now and download FlyMSG, that's FlyMSG.io for free. It's your free text expander and personal writing assistant. Hey, thanks for listening in, and until the next episode, good selling.